We are live now, Mayor.
All right.
Close, ma'am.
Welcome to the regular meeting of Helotes City Council. It's June 22nd, 7 p.m. This time we'll have the invocation given by Council Member Merchant, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand.
Let us pray. Lord, grant us the serenity, patience, and wisdom to ensure the best possible outcome for the citizens of Helotes. Guide us and direct us to do what we believe is just, right, and worthy of your praise. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. I'm going to put that on my notes. One little mess. Okay. Sounds good. All right. At this time, I am blessed and honored to recognize some of our citizen volunteers. We have had the honor of having relied on, depended on, and survived on the inputs of volunteers across the city in many areas, not the least of which is our boards. One of the more important, I shouldn't say more important, they're all very important, but that meet and has a significant impact on the outcome and the shaping of our city is the Planning and Zoning Committee. Pardon me? Commission, excuse me. Thank you, Commission, not committee, Commission. Thank you very much. I have the joy and pleasure of meeting people as they move into town, and some of them have been here 5 and 10 years, and now I've been here and can almost say I'm part of the Old Timers Club, being here 19 years. But even 19 years pales in comparison with our first recipient, who has served faithfully on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 23 years, and that would be Mr. Ron Haza. I would like to invite Greg Michelle to come up and say a few words as we honor Mr. Haza. Feel free to speak or address whatever.
And I'm going to, if I can, address all three at the same time. So I hate to have my back to you guys, so I'm going to try to turn. Can I just do this? This work?
Sure.
All right. So I won't be too long. My name is Greg Michelle. I am the chair of Planning and Zoning Commission, and it is somewhat bittersweet to be here to recognize and honor Jeff Wade, who couldn't be here this evening, but also Mario Rios and Ron Haza for their long service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mario for nearly a decade, Ron for more than 2 decades have served on this commission, doing really important work for the city. They are civic minded, they're dedicated, they are committed in all the ways that you would expect them to be. But they've also become friends of people I've known and worked with for a long time and have the utmost respect for. As we meet every month, I would say that a lot of the time this room may be empty, or there may be only a couple people here, but we show up, they show up, and faithfully take on the work that everybody in the city depends on. And sometimes it seems like thankless work, and sometimes we have to really scratch our head and navigate our way through some difficult issues, but they have proven over the years to be reliable and dependable and really honest brokers that have nothing but the best interests of the city in mind. And they've done that month after month and year after year, and it's a real testament to their commitment. Ron and I have done this together for basically the same amount of time, Ron a little bit longer than I, and it's amazing to think about how this city has changed and the role that the Planning and Zoning Commission has played in overseeing that change since 2000. The city has grown in size, its footprint, the number of people, the businesses, and this commission has played a key role in that. And Ron and Mario and Jeff were essential to that enterprise. And Richard Hawk, who's sitting here, who had served as well for many years on planning and zoning. And so I'm very grateful to council and the mayor for giving me the chance to acknowledge these folks publicly, because it's often work that you don't know that goes on, and unless we brag about it, and we're not likely to do that. But I want to thank them for their work. I hope that they will continue to stay invested in the city in whatever manner is most of interest to them. They've certainly deserve a break, but I hope they don't take a break and they find ways to stay involved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I'd like to call forth Mr. Ron Hazen. On behalf of the city of Helotes and City Council, would present you this plaque for appreciation of your 23 years of service to Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you very much.
There you go, Ron.
And also, Mario Rios.
Woo!
7 years dedication to the committee, your input and Ron's and Wade has been just fantastic input. As more than one person has echoed, and I agree. The city has been shaped by your all's works, and I appreciate your service. Thank you very much. Sorry. Right, at this point, we'll have the citizens be heard. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak whatever's on their mind. Be mindful that city council cannot respond to direct questions on this, except for general comments on anything that has actually transpired as a factual statement. Please, when you come up, state your name and address for the record. We'll start with Ann Caraway.
Good evening. My name is Ann Joseph Caraway. My address is 11240 Sunset Boulevard, Helotes, Texas. And I'm here today to address the item 8 on the agenda, which is regarding the sign that identifies the Old Town Helotes Special District. I have 2 issues with it. One, I think it should come before the Planning and Zoning Commission, either for approval or recommendation, because I don't think it's a maintenance issue. A maintenance sign would be repainting it, doing the same sign over. This is a totally new sign with new language on it. So if we say it is a maintenance issue and nobody has to approve it, then I think we're setting a precedent that is not good. Because if we're going to make all our business owners come up when they have new signs, we need to make ourselves come up, the EDC and everybody, and look at it. Okay. The second issue I have with it is that the language on it does not designate Old Town Helotes. It says visit Helotes, the arrow, parking. So the first thing that bothers me about that is confusing for the rest of Helotes, because I have an office in Helotes, but if somebody takes the arrow and says, oh, this is Helotes, and that's all, oh, that's all the city is, this nice little quaint downtown area. It's confusing. Okay, the second issue is that it hurts the vendors in Old Town Helotes. It's hard enough to have a business there because it doesn't have a lot of travel, foot traffic. So by saying this is Old Town Helotes and you have the arrow, people understand that that is that historic district, that the business that has been advertised as being in Old Town Helotes is located there. And so I think that the vendors need that direction to a destination spot, which is what we need, because that will bring more traffic there. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mario Rios.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. I didn't think I was going to have the opportunity to say words. I signed up for the citizens to be heard. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be recognized. It means a lot to me. My family was here, my wife, my granddaughter, Carissa, her friend Ian. And I just want to say, it's been an honor to serve. It's just for the record, I am disappointed that I'm not going to continue forward
in this capacity, but this is one chapter, and I believe another chapter will come down the road. But what I do want to say is it's been a huge honor for me to serve here to represent the city of Helotes and to represent really our citizens. And I know all of you who are on the dais right now can appreciate that, and the good people who are behind me and the fellow commissioners from planning and zoning that are here. We all know that it's about our community and our citizens. And that's what I always thought when I was up there doing the good work. So I just wanted to say that out loud and for the record. But I also want to acknowledge Jeff Wade, who's not able to be here tonight. I thought Jeff Wade was an amazing commissioner. I don't know if I ever met anyone who knew the code like him, and the commission losing him takes a big hit because he knew city code better than anyone. He was someone who could really rely on. And Ron Hauser back there, 23 years, it speaks volumes. He was an incredible, I considered him a mainstay. I mean, he was like the cornerstone of the commission. And I mean, and the whole time I knew him, I don't think the man ever missed one meeting. And when the pandemic hit, he was still here in this room while the rest of us were on Zoom. He was here holding down the fort. And I can't say enough about Ron Hauser. And I can go on and on. Richard Hawk was another great commissioner. He did great work. I would sit by him, and he used to be a great mentor. And of course, our board chair, Mr. Greg, just an amazing leader. Learned a lot from him. He provided good direction, and we saw some pretty controversial items and through the years, but we always found a way to get through it. And we felt like we did the best we could. And I got to say something about Miss Ann back there. Miss Ann is a wonderful, wonderful addition who is the last year has made the commission even stronger. So again, I can go down the road, and I don't want to take up all the time because that's not what it's for, but I do want to say that I do appreciate the opportunity, and I want to thank the city of Helotes for giving me, someone who comes from my background, Hispanic man, Mario Rios is my name, the opportunity to serve up here for the city of Helotes. Thank you very much.
Mr. Richard Hawk.
My name is Richard Hawk, HAWK, 10218 Rafter Trail, Helotes. I know we're not supposed to ask questions, but really I got a question. I just didn't understand why Ron and Wade and Mario had been released. It just seems that in the 20 years that I was hanging around, I never seen anybody off the commission before. And I just wondered if they'd done something wrong, if there's something else going on. But it just really struck me as I'm on several board of directors, and I've never seen people like these four guys that have been working as long as they were. It just seems like they need a better explanation. Thank you very much.
And just briefly, there was a action by city council to reduce the number of people on the commission to be commensurate with our other boards and other boards of similar size of cities throughout Texas. We had a couple issues with being able to get quorum. Larger number, smaller number makes it easier to be able to have a quorum. So there were issues that were discussed on an agendized item on previous. So please don't misunderstand. It's not people were fired or released for action or cause. It was a review of policy and be able to make sure we were able to maintain quorum and keep it consistent with the board sizes of similar sized cities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
At this point, I'd like to go to Robert James.
I'm Robert James. I'm here representing Cheetah Old Town Helotes, 14436 Old Bandera Road. We are the proud caretakers of the second oldest building in Old Town, and we consider that to be a very big responsibility. And we consider our Cheetah stores. In fact, we just renewed our contracts and our leases for another 5 years because of the success that we're having here in Old Town Helotes. And I want to personally tell you all how much I appreciate the work of all of you and all of P&Z Commission to make that happen. We are concerned because our customer base comes as far away as Austin and McAllen. We have customers drive in from Seguin all the way down to Hondo and Laredo. Our customers to come to Cheetah-Lish come from all over the South Texas. The sign that's going to be discussed in agenda number 8, to change that is going to be very unfortunate, because right now we're able to tell people when you're driving in, just come down 16 and look for that sign. It's a big sign. It's in Marty's field. I'm sorry, I don't have Marty's last name, but you will. That sign's very important because it points directly to the Old Town Special District. This is Old Town Helotes. The change that I'm seeing is just going to say, welcome to Helotes. This could be on any city limit sign. Welcome to Helotes, and we would totally support it. But this particular sign is important because it directs people to the Old Town District. It directs people, if they're going down 16 and they're not sure where they're going, they see that sign and they know we're there. So I ask you all just to consider that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have David Banks, or is it Banks?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, City Council. My name is David Banks, 14398 Old Bandera Road. I'm the owner operator of the Cottage Helotes. The sign in question on item number 8 is on the property that I occupy. I have a problem with the change because it differentiates, like Robert was saying, between Helotes and Old Town Helotes. I have people almost on a weekly basis in the last 6 months coming from Japan, Australia, England, Scotland. I don't know where these people are coming from. I can only think it's Military City, USA. But they come on in and they see this old town. They love the old buildings. You just put up a bunch of plaques differentiating every single historic building. You know, mine was an old residence and a carpenter shop. So after all these years, we're showing how unique each individual building is. We're going to take away the district sign that's showing where it's located. I don't believe it's right, just because it just, like Robert said, it gives an individuality, a different representation of that part of Helotes. Helotes is a great little city, right outside San Antonio, another great city. But we need to show people, this is the origin, this is where it started, this is where everything was before it grew out into the great city it is now. I think it'd be a shame to change that. A lot of us haven't, even I represent the business next door, is Old Town Helotes, the Old Town Depot, Old Town Helotes. You know, it's going to take that away. Some of us have it on our vehicles, on our cards, on our stationery. Take that away from Old Town. It's just, that's another street. We have Old Bandera Road. I don't think it should be changed. And I appreciate change, and I know it's inevitable, but I think we need to keep the old too. And I think many times in the United States, we've realized that things need to stay the same for a long time in some areas, and we need to go forward in other areas. And I think we can do and find a middle ground between it all. And I would like for it to see it stay. And I think a lot of people do. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
This is Terry Banks.
Good evening. I represent the Cottage 14389 on Old Bandera Road. And again, just as Robert and my husband have said, we both run the Cottage. It is a staple. It is what created Helotes. That is the center of this great town. And if you change that sign, it's going to direct people. They're not going to know where to go. And people have to say, well, we already passed the sign that said, welcome to Helotes. Why is there another one? Please don't change it. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Rhonda Fay.
Rhonda Fay, 11726 Peach Crossing, Helotes, Texas. I got to tell you, I'm confused after listening to the beginning over here of the commissioners. You talked about what the great work these guys did and how you had to eliminate positions to make it smaller so you get the little agenda. But I'm questioning why you chose the ones with the most experience. I was going to let my words that I wrote down speak for itself, but you just praise these guys and all the work they've done. And yet you've asked the most experienced, the ones who know the code, who've worked to make the city what it is. It's the reason why everybody moved to this area, the Old Town Helotes, the small town feel. And when you come in and you start changing that, these guys are the ones who were responsible for trying to keep that the way it is. And now you're turning around saying, we don't need you anymore. You go out and do your own thing. And yet, but you're saying how great a work they did. So I'm very confused on that situation, on that part of it. Like I said, I believe these guys have done a great job, but I'm starting to hear things in town too about how some of the changes we're making is not the old town feel. And these are the guys who are trying to keep that there. And so it's, to me, I don't know if it's confusing to anybody else, why we would take the most experienced guys off of this committee or commission and not keep their expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for their comments. For those that are commenting on agenda 8, I always recommend people stay and listen to discussion as it transpires in just a few minutes. Well, that closes citizens to be heard. At this point, we'll go to the consent agenda item, which is item number 4.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve consent agenda item number 4 is written.
Motion by Sanders. I'll second. Motion by Merchant. Anybody have any discussion? No issues? Okay. And in that case, all in favor of approving consent agenda item number 4 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I had a citizen come up to me, so I couldn't hear. Who was the first and the second?
Sanders and Merchant.
Thank you.
All right. And at this point, we'll go on to the mayor's report. Text dot improvements. Happy to say we're starting to see a lot more activity. I'm sure you've seen a lot more equipment in the last month than say in the previous 2 months before that. We continue to have weekly update Zoom meetings with we have Chief Moreland sits on those faithfully. Continue to apprise them of our concerns, such as the cuts and how they're kind of relatively harsh divots. We're hopefully getting those temporarily filled in so they'll be smoothed over. That should be forthcoming. We continue to press them to finish as expeditiously as possible. They did lose a couple months at the intersection at Bill Miller's. Due to a lot of limestone and some complications with the utilities underneath. And then, of course, we had the water main that was hit. So we did lose some time on that, but nonetheless, they are still ahead of their originally proposed schedule, and we're keep on top of that. Next update I wanted to give was concerning the water quality permit application for the Helotes Ranch wastewater treatment plant. As many of you know, if you've been paying attention, there's a huge development being proposed to be built by Lennar, some 3,000 homes north of Gray Forest, and their sewage treatment plan was to put I guess we call it gray water, out into the Helotes Creek. We had a lot of citizen input. We had an agenda item. We passed a resolution to speak against it. I've been working with Representative DeRazio's office on the state level. They have spoken against it, as well as there's been another representative, I think that was District 31 or 33.
I think that's Representative Roland Rodriguez.
Yes.
Yes. And as well as I've sent it to TCEQ along with a letter of our statement of condemnation of the project. I got an email just today from TCEQ. They'll be keeping us up to date on the process. There is going to be a contested hearing. We'll hopefully be a part of that, but we're going to continue to fight for maintaining our Helotes Creek free from that wastewater. Reminder of the Helotes Independence Day celebration and fireworks event. It will be Monday, July 3rd, out at the Helotes Festival Association Fairgrounds. We have a lot of vendors, close to 100 vendors.
Correct.
Close to 100 vendors will be out there. Last year, they sold completely out of food. So there will be some more vendors this time. We'll work on our sound systems, et cetera, to be more inclusive of everybody being able to hear our Helotes area community band. as they play annually to the fireworks display, which again has been a spectacular display. Encourage everybody to come out there, bring your family and friends, and enjoy a good community time. This time we'll move back to the agenda items. We're looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 6 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 6 as written.
Motion by Merchant, second by Cato. And basically, this is going to be the nominations to fill the corresponding members' ethics commission spots. We have Councilmember Cato is nominating Maggie Schuman. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
For a term for place 3 to expire in May of 25. Councilmember Merchant is reappointing Derek Mathis, also expiring May of 25. And my 2 appointments, reappointing and nominating Jesse Saldana for place 6 and Robert Hopner for place 7, both to expire May of 25. Do we have any questions or issues or statements? No, no discussion. With no discussion, questions, all in favor of approving the aforementioned nominees, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we're looking for a motion and a second to discuss, take action on item number 7 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move we discuss and take action on agenda item number 7 as written.
Motion by Sanders, second by Solms. Okay, Councilman.
So I was going to ask city staff. So this looks like it's the same company that we are currently using to collect delinquent property taxes, correct?
Correct, and they're actually used by majority of the cities and Bear County to collect delinquent taxes.
And so they get paid by how successful they are of getting the city the delinquent funds?
Correct, they get paid, but it's not paid. It's a fee on top of this. So whatever percentage, the property tax, it's a fee that's added on there. So it's a pass-through fee. The city actually does not pay them directly. It's added onto the bill of the delinquent taxpayer, and that's who pays that fee to them.
And just a general question, I don't know if you can share this information, it might be private or not, I don't know. Are they pretty successful?
They are pretty secure, yes. Yes, they are.
Okay.
We keep a running tally of each year delinquent. And as you might imagine, the older counts that have been delinquent for 10, 12 years, chip away at those. There's a lot, say from last year, it might be just a year in arrears, et cetera, but old debts are hard to collect. They've been as successful as anybody. They are the leaders in the field in this area. And we've been with them as long as
I want to.
we have a representative here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Do you know how long we've?
Right at the moment, this current contract is a 5-year renewal of the one prior. And I believe
2013.
Right.
It's been for a bit. And I would just love to say that your delinquent receivable, between 98 to 99.2% of your folks pay on time. So it's a very small percentage every year it rolls over. Of your $4.3 million levy every year, about 40,000 comes over to us every year. And we keep track of every year collecting. There's about 43% of your roll that's a no 65 deferral. That's something we can't touch, but we're monitoring that for you. So your taxpayers pay on time for the 99.2%.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear.
Once again, our citizens leading by example and making Helotes a great community to live in. No.
Thank you for that information. I'm good. I don't have any more questions.
Councilmember?
My questions were answered. Thank you.
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. With no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 7 as written, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Now, this is written as a discussion of, not approval. We're having
a discussion. I actually added extra information to your package because staff was doing research on this item, on what the history of how it got built, how it got approved and so forth. So it was actually erected in 2012. It was brought to P&Z and EDC and City Council as an action item because there was nothing there, so it needed to be erected. It was brought as a creative sign because as you see that sign, it actually, in Old Town, a creative sign is because there's variants that are needed. And so there was, due to the size, due to being a pole sign, all that were variances. So it came as a creative sign. There was no agenda packet, so I can't tell you what the initial design was, what they discussed. We could not find any of that. What we did find was minutes, and that's what I placed within your, and most of the discussion was more about the financial aspect of it than the design or the look of it, at least initially. It's not on property that's owned by the city. It's on property that is leased by EDC. And initially EDC was who brought it and actually owns or paid for the sign. Then it was refaced in 2017. When it was refaced, it was actually the city that brought it to planning and zoning, not EDC, for the refacing of it. And then that's when some of the design or the look of it was brought. It did not come to council. It just went to P&Z at that time. And I placed information on there. That one actually had agenda package where it showed the different designs and so forth. The reason staff has decided to bring it back and as a discussion item is for direction, because when it was brought in 2017, it wasn't brought back as a creative sign. It was brought back as an exempt sign. So that didn't fit, and I don't know why it was brought back as an exempt sign. There was no within the packet nor the minutes explained. It is not an exempt sign. It is a creative sign. The other thing is that the difference of the meaning of restoration. Restoration means the routine maintenance and painting of existing approved signs that do not change the approved design and color in any way. So the colors kind of stay the same. The definition of design, some people, is the wording the design, or is it the actual structural, sign itself, the design? And that's why I brought it back to y'all for direction, because I wanted direction on bringing it to P&Z and bringing it to council, because if we're refacing it also, it doesn't, obviously at one point it didn't come to council. So staff is just trying to get direction from y'all on what direction that you feel that we need to come. As staff, I feel that we should follow the initial that was in 2012, where it went to P&Z, and then it came to council for action and approval.
So a couple things before we get into the conversation, and there's really not, like you said, a lot of history of why it was brought the way it was in 2017, but by submitting as an exempt sign, that put it really on the city as far as being able to determine what was said, as opposed to an EDC sign, because it now is a city exempt sign, which therefore bypassed to some questions were raised earlier. Bypass it doesn't need its exempt sign, so therefore it falls under pure purview of the city, which is why it's coming to city now, but it's not an action item, it's just a discussion item. A couple of things to keep in mind. The sign and the design of the sign, it required initially variances. It was one of the things that we've had a number of businesses come, and it's been a big issue. Do we approve a sign or a variance because it wants to be over 8 feet tall? And there's a lot of pushback. No, we can't have signs over 8 feet tall because that detracts from the old hill country. Yet our very own city sign is 15 feet. And always put that as a reminder before we start too harsh on people for having, a 9-foot sign. We got to remember that our sign's 15 feet. We restrict people to make sure that their signs are 25 square feet, and this is many times bigger than that. So there is a lot that we afforded, I say we, the city of Helotes afforded itself in the sign in the first place, that we apparently would never allow anybody else to do, which I think is part of why they wanted to do exempt, is they wanted to do whatever they wanted to do without having to answer to anybody or P&Z or ordinances or other businesses, because we would tell them no. I'm a big proponent of the city living up to the same standards that we enforce upon our businesses and citizens. However, the design of this is now in place, and it's something we need to keep in mind when we take a look at what is on the sign. That's not really in the purview of P&Z, as far as we can't determine. For example, you can have a sign that says Safeway, but you can't have a sign that says Albertsons. We don't have really purview on the words. We can put input and discussion, and that's what we're having is a discussion here. So we have to be careful about discriminatory. We can make sure that it's not vulgar or explicative or things like that. But the sign and its design, its placement, it's in existence already. So I think what we need to do is open up a discussion, because it was an EDC sign that's brought forth. They had their own conversation, discussion. But because it's an exempt sign currently, I think that does give us some latitude to be able to have some input into discussion and send back.
And actually, I mean, like I said, even though it was brought as an exempt sign, 27, I think it was brought incorrectly. It does not meet the definition of exempt. If you see where they placed it in the agenda packet, right out of our code, it doesn't meet any of that. So this does not meet an exempt sign. So it does not meet any of those requirements. It is a creative sign. Now, EDC is not asking to change the height, the size, or anything else. They're asking refacing it. So they are refacing the front of it.
So a wrap, if I'm
Right, a wrap of it. Now, it has changed the wording and so forth on it. But it is and that's where, staff is, okay, does it fit restoration? Doesn't it? Where's the definition of design? Can come into play on that. But, and I'll let Glenn come up to talk about where the board decided, because we are looking at rebranding some of Visit Helotes. So there is a rebranding of EDC and so forth. So that's how this initially, and also the sign is falling apart. It needs to be redone. But I'm going to let Glenn talk about the direction on why the board chose this
Absolutely.
look of it.
I wish I would have brought the other 4 designs that it got narrowed down. The EDC board, as many of you know, is made up of local residents and business owners. In fact, one of them has a business in Old Town and one has a business across the street. It took the EDC 6 months to narrow down this particular design. So it wasn't a decision that was taken lightly. Definitely have heard the comments tonight. It's things we can take in to advisement. Some of the reasons behind selecting this particular design, there are already 7 monument signs that say Old Town Helotes in the district on every major entrance to Old Town. But for the city of Helotes as a whole, we have no signage, nor are we allowed to have signage per text regulations in the right of way. And that's something the EDC had been trying to get for a number of years. So taking some of that into consideration, and one of the other, I guess, kind of side businesses that we do is Visit Helotes. We have a website, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. We did go through a rebranding from Shop Helotes to Visit Helotes to try to be a little more inclusive of everything that's happening. And we're trying to find ways to enforce that brand throughout Helotes. And so the board felt that this was a good opportunity to reinforce Visit Helotes.
So a couple of things, and we'll turn it over to the general discussion. This is an EDC sign, and EDC, while wholly owned by, and I'm just stating this to kind of set the parameters for discussion, people's understanding. EDC is a wholly owned corporation by the city of Helotes. However, it runs autonomously, has its own board and makes its decisions. And while city council does have certain controls on budgetary approval of budgets and as well as large dollar expenditures, those are generally the limits of the control the city council has over EDC. So in part, we need to consider this request or this discussion of this sign, what's going to be on the sign, much like we would consider the discussion of a business owner wanting to have, as they've come before us and say, hey, we'd like our sign to say this, or we're going to change it up and say this. That's that business purviews and kind of a little bit on the EDC's purview. That said, to kick off discussion, I'm personally, while I like the Visit Helotes, and I'm not exactly sure how much our branding of Visit Helotes has taken. We also have a little bit of branding I've been doing of, the hashtag, Helotes proud, but those are, two of the things that are going on there. We do, and the EDC is tasked, one of their major purposes is to brand our city and to advertise our city and to advertise events and to bring people into Helotes and to attract businesses. I do believe personally that is a marquee of where Old Town is. And you are correct. We do have each of the entrances, it says coming into Old Town Helotes, but that is the parking for Old Town Helotes as well too, especially for our market days, heavily used. We do have entrances to Old Town businesses from that parking lot. So me personally, in my personal input, which is just that, and we're not even voting on anything, and even if we did, I don't get a vote, is that it should, I don't mind the Visit Helotes, but there really also should, in my opinion, be some sort of annotation for Old Town incorporated in this. And so with that, we'll turn it over. I'll just start at this end. Craig, you wanna?
Well, I don't know where to begin. I guess, so I understand the difference between EDC and the city, right? But collectively, we're calling a sign, a municipally, this belongs to the municipality. I have a problem comparing that to a business who actually submits a permit. And it looks like our ordinance is generally written for, if you submit a permit for a sign, you will go through all these steps through the services department. You will have to meet the P&Z. And if it's something you're asking for a variance, or if it's something to do with Old Town, it will come to council. And so I know we're generally not supposed to have any input on content on signs, but this is a municipality sign. And if we don't have input, then it just seems wrong to me. And it's nobody's fault. I think this is over a decade of previous administrations, whoever, have not codified our ordinances correctly in order to handle this situation. And this situation comes up every 5 years, right? Because if you notice what Marion said, every 5 years, because of the UV lighting, that sign gets destroyed. And Glenn, can you tell me, when we switched it from the original sign that went up in 2012 to 2017, was it essentially the same?
No, not even close.
I would love to see what that picture was, just to see what changed.
I can tell you my personal preference was going back to the original. And it simply, it was Old Town Helotes and had the logo for Old Town, which is on top of most of the monument signs going to the area. So it was simple. And then in 2017, obviously the decision was to go with something a little different, something that had a little bit more color. We've exceeded our 5 years. It is, the other side of the sign is even worse. It's almost not legible.
So I know one of the questions that city staff posed in the extra handout was the whole meaning of, restoration, right? The whole, the maintenance and painting of existing approved signs that do not change the approved design, color in any way. I mean, I struggle because I do see change, but it all goes back to, well, we can't talk about content, right? And again, I would argue it's city property. If the city can't comment on it, then I don't, but I can comment about a business sign. So I interpret that as that has changed. There's other wording in in section 66 that uses the word altered, but there's no definition of what altered means in our ordinances. We break out what restoration means, but we don't talk about altered. I would say that sign's altered. But again, we don't have a definition in the ordinance. I personally think it should say Old Town. And I guess, and this is really not the topic of discussion, but I'm gonna throw it in there. Has there been any discussion about trying to lease a piece of property like we did? Mr. Banks, I believe that was your name, right, Mr. Banks? Apologize, I'm so bad with names. Is there an opportunity to lease some space at the beginning of Helotes and on both ends of Helotes to put up a sign that says just that?
We have looked in to the option, and a lot of it has to be in a way put on the back burner with all the improvements that are made, because TxDOT did utilize a lot of their either right away or up to the edge of private property.
Because that's perfect for, I think, the entrance and exit of the city, right? That's something the city's never had. For right now, I think that's my comments. I believe this is a creative sign. I would recommend, I saw how hard EDC worked on this project, right, as being the L&O. I got to be honest with you, I actually thought this was going to follow the same process and go through P&Z and then come through us. I did not realize it was just going to potentially go via FAR direct. So I do think changes need to be made in our ordinances after the fact, right? I don't think we should slow down, but I would love to. I would request that the EDC members relook at their options and assess the feedback that they're getting from the community, from the P&Z members, and I have no idea what the rest of the council is going to say, but I will say this: Council Member Massey couldn't be here. She was very concerned about it, as you would imagine, and so I'm kind of in lockstep with what her thoughts are too. I'm not going to try to speak for her. I'll just let everyone know that she believes that should say Old Town, and that we should find signs for other locations if that's possible, and ask the EDC to reconsider and to make a change in ordinances that would prevent this kind of confusion in the future. I'm done. Okay.
I guess, Glenn, could you, when you say the EDC worked on it for 6 months, could you explain what that means?
Yeah,
and what type of involvement you got from the Old Town businesses and Helotes community?
So I can say that the board did not reach out to the Old Town businesses. They just discussed it between 7 members on the commission and the sign contractor to come up with multiple variations, and then eventually narrowed it down to 4 options. And then this particular one was selected at their, I guess it was 3 months ago at the April meeting.
So what was behind, because the old one says shopping, dining, music, entertainment, the new one says shopping, dining, entertainment. Was that just a layout space issue, or why was?
Primarily, and then music and entertainment are kind of
redundant?
Yeah.
So you said that the EDC would take these comments from the council as well as the Old Town businesses to include potentially Old Town Helotes. Could it still have the branding of Visit Helotes, Texas? Or does space not allow to put Old Town Helotes, shopping, dining, entertainment?
Based on everything that I've heard tonight from the citizens to be heard, and then from council, and then also from the P&Z meeting, this is definitely something that I will be taking back to the EDC board for reconsideration and input.
Thank you, Glenn.
Based upon what we've learned so far, I don't believe this is a restoration per the definition given to us. Other than that, I like the new sign compared to the old sign. I think it's eye-catching. It doesn't, although it is supposed to be for Old Town Helotes, it doesn't look old. It looks fresh, but you got a windmill. I guess that's what I take that to be. The only comment I would say is, I guess part of the your branding is visit Old Town or visit Helotes, Texas. Okay, I do not see a need for Texas. If you don't know where you are, you're in trouble. Okay, why not take out Texas and put Old Town right there? That's just a thought. Visit Helotes, Old Town. I mean, Helotes is still in big words, but you've got Old Town in there, and you haven't altered any other part of the sign. That's just my personal opinion.
And with that, not to jump in front of you, but or again, taking text out, maybe space down and visit and script Old Town Helotes. With that, the possibility, of course, this would be adding or changing the sign. Where you've got the parking. If there's a possibility you could also put a second one and put the parking lower, but the second one you could put shopping, dining, entertainment on where parking is currently, and then parking below that, which would give you more room to put Old Town Helotes. I mean, the point being is that I think there's some creativity that could be expressed to work in Old Town in there. But and if that was the case, that would be changing, but we're already doesn't fall. I tend to agree with you. It doesn't really fall under
Restoration anyway.
It's debatable. It's certainly
Right.
arguable one way or the other, but without making a definitive judgment at this point, because it doesn't require that, it certainly could be looked at for minor changes, a second banner across or lowering parking to give you a little bit more space to include the variety of offerings of Old Town. But sir, your comments?
My comments. How many exempt signs do we have in Helotes? Like if this was exempt at one point, is there any others?
Exempt, okay, so
What does that mean?
is exempt, the definition, yeah, our code, let me go back to there. It actually on page, one of the exhibits, it.
Yeah, I don't have what you have. There it is. Official government notices and notices posted by government officers. The signs, memorial signs, tablets. Okay, so all of this. Good Lord. Well, I just like, do we have any, like other than the marquee out here?
The marquee, no, that's it. That's the only ones as the city,
Yeah, as a city.
as we own, yes,
That's
correct.
it. Okay, and then this one was kind of thrown in there to get around everything. Okay, so there's that. I, as a council person, and this is my second term, so I really depend on the P and Z to look at these things and give advice and direction for me. I really do. And I would really like to see this run through them just for that, just because, I mean, I'm sitting up here on the dais trying to make a decision based on one option.
That's why we brought this as a discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
Because when it was brought
it's
to
not
P
a
and
decision,
Z,
but a
yeah, right, it was brought to P and Z, because we knew we hadn't looked at all the history yet. And so we wanted to at least get it in front of P and Z. And then when I spoke with Glenn, I told him, I said, I also need to get it in front of council.
Right.
And especially when it came back and we found all the minutes and found the history of the sign, because, and so that's why with what I'm hearing from council, it is not a restoration. So it does have to go back to P and Z. It goes back as a creative sign, okay? It goes back as a creative sign. And then at that point, they can input. Now, even with input, you're still, I mean, they will input. They're limited to what they can't tell like any business the content of it or the color of it,
Right.
but they can give recommendations. And I believe Glenn, with what he's heard from this meeting, and that was one of the reasons to bring it also here, is that we posted a lot of residents, a lot of businesses follow our agenda. So that's where we can get input from them in a formal setting, and I think that's important where it's on record, it's a formal setting, we get this information and Glenn can take this back to his board and give them that and saying, this is the direction and this is a recommendation as a staff member, just as I would to our council, when we get input at any kind of meeting.
I like that. I would, I think that's a great idea.
So I just want to go back to something. So I know Texas law has taken a lot of authority away from local governments, a lot of authority. So what was true 8-10 years ago, where like, for example, when a developer wants to do something to, a building that they're building, we used to have a lot more input as a city council, and that has slowly eroded. But does that law really apply when we're talking about a municipal sign and it's municipal boards and councils? We don't have, that rule applies even in that scenario. And
then I would.
you understand where I'm coming from, Frank?
The state really hasn't taken much authority away from cities with regard to their signs. Cities still have a lot of control with regards to signs inside their city limits as well as in their ETJ. And so with regards to signs, unless they're on federal highways, city have a lot of say as to what regulations apply to those signs.
Specifically, if we're talking about our own signs.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and to that point, it bothered me a little bit that TxDOT is saying, no, we can't put a sign in the right of way because State Highway 16 goes all the way through Leon Valley. And we know they've got their monument signs right in the middle of the median.
And I do know how that got approved.
So
the city paid for all of those roadway improvements in order to get that.
As far as an agreement with TxDOT.
Exactly.
So it's a very expensive proposition.
Very.
And I'm not necessarily sure that we need, more signs in Helotes. I'm not arguing for more signs, but it's a nice sign to have and it needs to look nice. But I think to Craig's point, it's not so much a matter of law in this case. I think it should be more a matter of professional courtesy between the two city organizations working together, recognizing that we represent collectively EDC and its development endeavors and city council as their administrative endeavors to represent the people of Helotes in the best possible manner and not get so much in a territorial dispute of, well, this is ED signs because in the letter of the law, we can't tell you exactly what to say. And that may sound silly to some residents, well, your council and their EDC and you own them. Yes, but no. But I think in this case, it's not like us dealing with, one of the restaurants and telling them what their sign needs to say. I think there is a difference, Craig, and you've encapsulated it. And I just would hope that EDC board, when you bring this back, realizes that the spirit here isn't to control EDC and micromanage them and tell them what to think, but to really feedback and work collaboratively to best represent our businesses and our old town and our special district, because it is a special district.
Right.
And I think we need to find a way to be able to do this that embraces our EDC board as opposed to challenging them, and just work to be able to find a solution that best serves our city.
Well said.
And so this is a discussion item, so there's no action. So unless there's any other discussion, we can send you back to EDC and hopefully continue with our conversation.
See you again in maybe a month.
Sure.
So what I'll do is he'll take it back to EDC. It will come back to planning and zoning as an action item, and then it will come back to council as an action item at that point.
That's good.
So hopefully we'll try to get it on then. Well, the EDC doesn't meet till July 19th, so it'll probably come before you in August.
Thank you, Glenn.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir. Not for me.
All right. With no further items on our agenda, we will adjourn. The time is 7:59.